Hello, welcome to Polyphonic Tarot. Today I will be doing a reading for Eremita 90. So I'm just going to refer to you as Eremita, which, for those of you who don't know, is Italian for hermit. So that's the name that I've been asked to use. So anywho, I will be basically doing a reading, the 21 card, I don't know where my head is today, folks. The 15 card reading, the Tot Spread reading. And today we're going to be addressing the question that or the situation that you posed to me in your email, which was essentially about the relationship you're having with your current boyfriend and how you basically are in the process of pursuing a master's degree in philosophy, and that is taking place in Ireland, and your boyfriend is German and wants you to move to this small German village or something or other, and basically put that kind of life aside. So already I am incredibly biased about this situation right off the bat, which is not good perhaps for me to tell you, but I already sort of have an opinion on this situation. I will try very hard, however, to not allow that to seep into my interpretation of the cards, but we will see what comes up. So, Eremita, I have chosen for you, since you are in Aries. I know you said your ascendant is Cancer, but for significators, I always go with sun sign. And being in Aries, I am going to go with the Knight of Wands for you today. I am using my Tot deck, the smaller version, so that I can hopefully fit the 15 cards in the window for you so that you can see everything. And we're just going to give these a shuffle. I will invoke, and then we will be on our way. Okay, so let's go ahead and start putting them out. Okay. So the way this spread works, just to remind you and give you sort of an overview rather, of what exactly I'm looking at here. The central triad of cards represents basically the overall situation. On the opposite ends of the top, we have the two potential outcomes. Traditionally, you say that the one on the right is what is more likely to happen if things continue naturally the way they are. The one on the left, if it is totally different from what's on the right, represents an alternative course of action, or it can represent an elaboration on what is represented in the outcome on the right. So there's that. On the bottom left here, I have the psychological, basically what's happening in the situation that is not necessarily at surface level, what is happening either unconsciously or psychologically, or what is going on within you to bring about this situation. It's almost like the root position of the Celtic cross. And over here is represents the karmic influences, or essentially things that are not necessarily within your control, aspects or aspects of the situation that you have to learn about, or usually the more spiritual implications of the situation. Okay, so your overall situation definitely has to do with pursuing that which you are passionate about and pursuing your ideals. You are represented as both the Princess of Wands and the Princess of Wands and the Prince of Wands. So you have this very fiery nature, very fiery spirit, and it is both of those cards so strongly represent pursuing one's passions. You know, the Prince of Wands also tends to represent travel and going someplace different in order to pursue those goals. And so I think that that is pretty apt for describing you, considering that you are, that you've made this choice to study in Ireland. I think I read that right. Ireland, not Iceland. Let me just double check that, since I want to be absolutely sure here. what I'm talking about. Wouldn't that be nice? Da, 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 da. Ireland, yes, Ireland. Sorry. Anywho, okay. So since you are, moving to this new place, or you've started in this new place, the Prince of Wands makes a lot of sense here. Um, I think what's also interesting about those two cards is that they both also are fire, and fire in tarot is the suit of spiritual pursuits. People that are interested in philosophy and spirituality and religion and that those sorts of things are generally represented by wands. Oddly enough, for whatever reason, you might think that the cups would do that more, but no, it's actually the wand suit that tends to represent that more clearly. And this is clearly philosophy and religion are clearly things that are important to you and that do give you real happiness and satisfaction. You have the Nine of Cups there in the middle as well to reinforce the idea that those pursuits are what really make you happy. Now, in the psychological basis of the situation, you have the Six of Discs with the Hermit and Lust. Excuse me. And I think it's tricky because I think you are sort of torn in two directions. I mean, and that's also, apparent from your email as well, because, I know that you feel that you have this deep connection with your boyfriend and you don't want to necessarily lose that. But I see you as more gravitated more towards needing to do what you need to do, and pursuing that which is the reason for your existence, that sort of thing. The Six of Discs is a little confusing here. I think on one hand it represents your desire to kind of make fair trades and with your boyfriend, either in the form of compromise, really. Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that possibly, I don't know. It's tricky to say. The basis of your situation is with in this pile. Okay, let me move on from that for a second. The your karmic influences are represented by Death, the Prince of Discs, and the Magus. And I think that, honestly, I don't know. I get the sense that your boyfriend is an earth sign. That's just what I get based on the situation and from this, because I'm trying to figure out what this Hermit and Six of Discs business is about in your psychological influences. And then you have the Prince of Discs over here in your karmic or exterior influences. And your boyfriend is the type of person who does want to settle down, clearly. I assume that he's somewhere around your age, so you're probably around my age, around 24, 25, more or less, mid-20s is what we're looking at, and he's already looking to settle down. I don't think that that's going to work for you, my friend. I see in your karmic influences Death and the Magus, and I think that the Magus is more associated with your own ability and your own intellectualism, which the Prince of Discs is not really about. I think that the Prince of Discs isn't... I don't know how much he can understand that part of you. I think that you have a really strong connection physically, and I think that that's what this is telling me here, that at the heart of this, your connection with him is primarily physical. You have a really good sex life, is I think what this is saying, and that the connection you have with him is passionate and is deep and is not invalid. but I don't know that it is more important or should take precedence over what really moves you and what you are what you feel you are called to do. I think the magus also represents your willpower, but also your creative energy, your creative output. And the magus does and the Prince of Discs do not get along. The Prince of Discs, it doesn't understand that type of abstract thinking. That's not what the Prince of Discs is put on the earth for. But you are, and that's something that you have to keep in mind. I'm not saying that he's a bad guy, and I'm not saying that um, that you should necessarily break up with him just because of this. But I don't know how easily this is going to work out between the two of you. And I also know you've only been dating 6 months, uh, and it just seems death is telling me that this is not long for this world eventually. And if you yourself are already saying to yourself that, I have more fun learning about philosophy and reading dead mystics than I do with than I do with a real person, or particularly with him more specifically, then there's a problem. If you really do care about someone, then in my book anyway, that person is going to fuel you and add to your life in a way that is inspiring and doesn't feel burdensome in any way. It shouldn't feel like an oppression at all. I think you have a choice to make here. I think that's the obvious first outcome here. Your first outcome is represented primarily by adjustment with the Knight of Cups and the Princess of Swords, and I think that tells me that the decision is not easy before you, that it is not a decision that you're going to come to quickly, but it is one in which you're going to have to decide which love do you want to pursue. Do you want to pursue the love that you have found over the past 6 months, or do you want to pursue the love that calls to you deeply and has called to you since you were born? That's the basic question that you have to ask yourself. And again, it's not an easy question, but it is the question that I think is before you. And it's funny that you told me to call you Eremita, considering that you have the Hermit in your reading, and also just the fact that spiritual pursuits, as I do my best to walk along this path myself, I also find that connecting with people is not easy, and that connecting with people does often get in the way of these pursuits. And I think that that's because spiritual pursuits are really only about you, ultimately. Spiritual pursuits, yes, spiritual pursuits can be about charity and can be about giving, but those are all extensions and expressions of the growth that you are doing internally, because you are learning. The purpose of spirituality is to learn to love yourself and to appreciate and understand yourself enough to see yourself reflected in everyone else, and to therefore want to do good to everyone else, because you understand the connection between all of us, and to help one part of the system is to help all of the system. But ultimately, spiritual pursuits have to be about fixing you, because, you can't ever fix anybody else. No one is ever going to fix anyone other than themselves. Prayer and meditation are about you, and understanding the universe, so to speak, or, to come as close to that as possible, starts with understanding yourself and understanding your own connection to the universe. And that does not involve another person, ever. It does, in the sense that you learn about yourself through the differences you have with other people, but it does not necessarily come about through relationships. through romantic relationships or otherwise. It comes about through interactions with people, certainly, but I just think that I just think that there's more substance in the call that you have to pursue what you know you need to pursue than there is in this relationship that I don't know that you really, in your heart of hearts, really want. Again, your psychological basis for this situation is the Six of Discs. And the Six of Discs, I'll be very honest with you, never comes up in a reading, in a relationship-oriented reading, to represent platonic love of any kind. It is physical. It is literally, and especially in conjunction with lust, that just tells me that the basis of this, of the connection, of the reciprocity that you feel, is predominantly physical. I'm sorry. I hate to, kind of put it like that, but that's just what I feel, and I think for him, that's probably enough. He again is a pretty simple person. There isn't a whole lot going on up there in terms of abstract, like, big idealistic desires and dreams and goals, whereas that's you. And yes, opposites attract, and yes, opposites are great, but in this time of your life, when you are trying to finish this degree in philosophy, and you're coming to a point where I think you realize this is what you want to do in life, and you don't necessarily want to settle right now. I think you are enjoying the freedom and the exploration of the prospects in front of you. And the fact that settling down in a small German town is kind of nauseating to you, that should tell you something, that your life goals do not match up with this person's, and that is unfortunately a reason to not pursue it anymore. And I'm not telling you that you should one way or another. I mean, you're an adult, and you're going to make whatever decision you make, and but I do think that you do have to make some kind of decision, as based on adjustment. And honestly, to be very honest with you, I think that the universe is going to make that decision for you. If you have any difficulty making that decision, I think God's going to make it for you, because in your alternative outcome, you have the Wheel of Fortune, the Priestess, and the Ten of Swords. The Ten of Swords re-emphasizes the idea of death, that the universe is not really working with you in this relationship. It's not really working for you. It is, if anything, working against you to try to end it slowly. And believe me, I feel only free to say that with confidence, because I have received that before in readings for myself, and it is a huge bummer, and it's a huge disappointment sometimes, but we do have to remember that it is always for our own good, one way or another. It does suck, especially when we do feel like we've really found someone that's special, and someone that we could spend a portion of our lives with, but I don't know that the universe is really, that the things that are happening around you are really catering to that. I just see life kind of sweeping you away from that situation, and the Ten of Swords is just, it has a very strong chance of ending. And it may end of your own volition, but I think, I just think that that events are going to move in a way that's going to convince you of the necessity of ending it. I just do. And the Priestess, I think, is also going to sort of intuitively inform you that that's the way things are going to go. And I also think that the Priestess, on the same token, I think that the Priestess and the Wheel of Fortune, we have to also, consider that those two cards are so positive. And so the Ten of Swords really doesn't have as negative a connotation in this reading as it would normally. It's aspected by two very beneficent cards, and two cards that, for me, always represent, your guardian angel intervening for you, and trying to steer you in a certain direction. There was a goofy song that I think Carrie Underwood came out with years ago called "Jesus Take the Wheel," which is sort of a song we make fun of here in America at this point. But but there's kind of an element of that I think is relevant here. I think Jesus, or whatever you want to call him, is going to take the wheel for you here in this situation, and I think is going to steer you in a direction that is away from this person. And again, not because this person is bad, not because this person wouldn't necessarily work for you, but he doesn't work with you right now. Um, again, your goals are just so different. So, and I think that you are going to be able to deal with this fairly rationally. I get the sense that with adjustment and the Princess of Swords in your future, that this is something that you are going to try to wrestle with as logically and rationally as possible. Your heart is it's tricky because your heart is getting pulled in different directions. Um, but I do think that keeping in mind the reality of the relationship and the reality of it is so important. I know that you're a Cancer with Aries as your sun, so I also know that you're pretty idealistic, and that's perfectly fine because I am too, and so I understand. Um, but yeah, I think this is an opportunity for you to really take stock at what you actually have in front of you, and to make your decisions based on that, and not on some romantic dream that you may have. If that is indeed what the Knight of Cups is partially representing here, the pursuits of romanticism, and very idealistic romanticism, particularly with the Knight of Cups always searching for his holy grail. On the bottom of your deck, you do have, just to get into that because we haven't talked about that, not a whole lot that is particularly relevant here that I can really add to this reading, but you do have the Ace of Cups and the Empress on the bottom, with the Nine of Swords on the bottom of that, with the Ace of Discs under that. I like to read at least 4 of the bottom cards, and in this case, I just think that again, the Empress and the Ace of Discs, provided that those have anything to do with the relationship that you're in right now, do suggest, again, physical relation, more of a physical connection, in a physical kind of love. But the Nine of Swords tells me that you're just really agitated about all of this, and I think that there's more emotional and psychological tension that you're going through sort of unnecessarily. I don't know that you really need to be going through all of this right now, and worrying about pursuing your real loves over this guy. And I know you don't want to hurt his feelings either, but I think that the best, if it does come to a place where you do need to break up with him, I think that you do have to pose it as rationally as possible, because that's what he'll understand, if he understands at all. Um, I don't know. I mean, the Ace of Cups tells me that the heart of this situation is about pursuing real happiness, and real happiness for you, as indicated in this reading, has to do with pursuing your passions. So if your relationship is getting in the way of that, then and at the same time isn't producing real happiness, then I don't know what the purpose of staying in a situation like that would be. And especially, as I've gathered, it seems like it's a long distance thing too. It just seems so brutally complicated. And I know personally it's not a situation that I would feel comfortable in myself. I would be in a similar state of agitation, that Nine of Swords. And I know that I couldn't keep up with that long. But I know that you think that you feel that you have this connection with him, which again is valid. But yeah, and it's funny. At the beginning, I said I was very biased, and I was going to try not to let my bias seep. Oh my gosh, my English today, to seep into this reading. But it looks like I didn't have to do much in terms of blocking bias because it kind of said what I already had envisioned it would say. You know, I didn't have high hopes for this reading, for you, to be honest with you. I didn't think that it was going to be in great support of that relationship, and not only just because the whole thing smelled kind of fishy, but also just because I have done many readings like this for myself before, and it's just this is how things tend to work for people like us. You know, for people that have that more spiritual bent of mind. You know, not everyone has that, and that's okay. And again, and it doesn't make us better than anyone else either, obviously. But it just means that we have different life goals and different perspectives on things, and many times in life, significant others don't really understand that or don't know how to work with that. And that can be painful and difficult, um, and not easy to maneuver, the Princess of Swords. But at the same time, you know, as Jesus said, whoever wishes to follow me, take up your cross and follow me. You know, and that is a very a very apt statement for the spiritual life. You know, it is not an easy call, and it is not an easy pursuit. As I always say, religion is work, and it's also sacrifice. It's also a lot of sacrifice. So I'm sorry if this reading was not quite what you had hoped for, Eremita, and I'm sorry. I really am. But I do hope that it helps, and I do hope that you can at least look at it positively, because I do think that this reading is trying to say that the relationship is not going to work out in as positively a way as possible. I think it's trying really hard to tell you that it's not going to work out really and truly for your own good, and really it's because, you know, just because your guardian spirit, or whatever you want to call it, just is trying to pull you in a different direction, and I think it's telling you in this reading that trusting that is very important right now. To just believe in that, because it's real, and it's important to listen to that call when we get it. Okay. And that's about it. As far as recurring symbols, you have a little bit of the moon recurring. You have a little bit of Jupiter. Not a lot. There really isn't a whole lot. You do have this strong current of fire in the middle, which I do like, to represent your spiritual self. Let's see. We don't have. There's a fair amount of air. It's not an imbalanced reading. There's not a whole lot else I can pull from this. It's kind of self-explanatory. So if you have any questions, let me know. And I hope that if anything, it was helpful, and at least gave you a second perspective. So yeah. Anywho, thank you so much for your purchase. It was a pleasure reading for you for this first time, and thank you for watching my videos and keeping track of all my stuff. So I appreciate your business today, and I wish you the best of luck with everything. I think it's really cool that you're pursuing a master's in philosophy. I'm a little jealous, I'm not going to lie. So I again wish you the best of luck, and thank you so much again.